the one thing gonna change North Korea is cutting the oil. Imagine North Korea is not oil producing country. If you stop giving them oil, how they're gonna test the missile? How they're gonna keep building missiles? China is giving them oil, so North Korea is keep building missiles and advance their technology when it comes to weapons. I'm not saying cutting the food. I'm not saying cutting medical supplies, cutting the oil so North Korea cannot build any more missiles. But China is keep giving them oil. And I think that is why people just don't know what a threat the Chinese Communist Party and North Korean regime is to the world. And if China cuts down that oil supply, North Korea gonna collapse because how the dealer gonna drive his car to visit his luxury resort?
I hate America. Then why do people try to illegally immigrate here?
Probably because you're less likely to get sanctioned, embargoed, cooed, and bombed by America when you're in America.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel here. It's Lavender here, and today I want to do a quick deep dive video into how US sanctions in particular kill around the world and kill civilians and stuff. So let's get started into this true crime case video, because it is a true crime. So let's get started into this video. So US imperialism uses economic strangulation to strangle countries into a devastating weapon that kills millions upon millions of people every year. It's a genocide. This weapon is stunting the growth of countries and the people that live in them. Some of the countries the US has blockades and sanctions are such as Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, China, the DPRK, Palestine, Syria, Vietnam, Russia, and Yemen are just some of the countries that have US sanctions on them, most of which have also been the victims of capitalism and the victims of massive US imperialism and US terrorism and US terror genocide campaigns, that were throughout the media, the US media, the Cat's Pig media, Porky's media, etc. And there are, fake human rights activists such as, Yemi Park, who claim that they're human rights activists, but they, weirdly enough, ignore all the harm done from US sanctions. She's even called for a total stop to cut off all the oil supply to the DPRK Korea. She's not a human rights activist. She's just a fake LARPer. Because no one in their right mind would want to, literally starve a country to death if they're a human rights activist. She just cares about the money, she's a US imperialist. So yeah. The devastating impacts of US sanctions on these countries is never pretty much talked about in capitalist media for obvious reasons, because the United States always wants to paint themselves as a human rights activist when they're they're not anything about human rights activism. The United States is one of the biggest human rights violators in the world. The United States alone lets people in their own country be homeless, they don't have shelter, and then they let them starve. There are people who literally can't eat, don't have enough food, so they just give it to their children, but they won't eat for themselves, even though they are the richest country in the world due to United States colonialization and US imperialism after looting the whole entire world. Blockades and sanctions deliberately target the most defenseless civilians of a country, whether that be sick people in the country or healthy people, doesn't matter. These evil sanctions are the United States puts in place, ends up depriving hundreds of millions of people from getting basic necessities of life and their, basic needs met. Countries hit with these sanctions struggle to survive and to fill the needs of their countries and citizens. Let's just say, for example, a lack of medicine for things such as, the COVID-19 outbreak. The basic need of that, COVID-19 medication is denied on purpose due to U.S. sanctions, causing millions into misery and suffering death. The United States is a fascist regime. This has already been established. They terrorize millions because of their pro-capitalism profits over lives greed. U.S. sanctions killed over 40,000 Venezuelans since 2017. Over 40,000 deaths are reported in a study released by the Center of Economic and Policy Research. Venezuela's economic crisis is routinely blamed on just Venezuela itself, but it is much more than that. U.S. sanctions are deliberately aiming to wreck Venezuela's economy and therefore make it easier to do coups and regime change in that country, and also other countries as well. This is causing great harms to Venezuelan people and people all over the world who have sanctions on their countries from the US's fascism. So yeah, the loss of oil-based incomes have prevented the Venezuelan government from improving the country as a whole and also buying food and medicines at international markets. Another case of an act of genocide by the United States is during the COVID-19 epidemic that's still to this day raging on to this day. Water, soap, hand sanitizer, electricity, basic necessities needed by hospitals in those countries. I mentioned fuel for delivery, vital goods and food are all in short supply because of the brutal, inhumane, genocidal U.S. imperialism sanctions. The sanctions meant that Venezuela and other countries are unable to import key medicines for conditions like cancer or diabetes or COVID-19, leading to scores of death in those countries. Thomas Sankara actually had a quote that he said, the one who feeds you usually imposes his will upon you. Those who feed you control you. The United States is trying their best to bully and genocide countries into submission, to control them, and try to get them, to give them the resources and do coups and regime change so they can, take the resources. This is a enormous human rights abuse, and it is an enormous challenge to break the media's silence because capitalist media doesn't want to expose this because all they care about is profits over lives. So if you guys like this video, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. Bye guys, see you next video.